Hello, this is Asian English News Podcast from the Soochow University World Service, with the analysis of the Asian news across the world. Latest news, 7 days a week. Asian English News Podcast from Soochow University is supported by advertising. This is a special episode of coronavirus impact on Asian countries. Welcome back to our podcast, and today I'm your host. I'm Hank. In today's message, we will invite 3 students, Vivian, Doris, and Kenny, to share the recent coronavirus pandemic news. They are students from English department, Soochow University, and they really care about the current news around the globe. So first, we have Vivian here. Vivian, I already heard a lot about you, and I know you're really concerned about the teenagers' rights. However, due to the coronavirus pandemic, many countries declare the lockdown in the nation. Especially in Japan, teens' pregnancy increased significantly in pandemic. So can you explain to us about your opinions?
Sure, thank you. Thanks for having me here. And I want to share a special phenomenon happened in Japan teenagers during this pandemic. And according to Livedoor News, since February, the teens' pregnancy in Japan is increased significantly during this pandemic. And the many birth clinics just received many calls and questions by teenage girls or their parents to ask about their pregnancy, their kids, if their kids have pregnancy or not. So I want to explain why this happened in Japan. So why this happened is because the pandemic outbreak in the whole world. Yes, we all know that. And the Japan government took some precautions that they say school needs to close. And it means that those students cannot go to school anymore and during this pandemic. And they also tell citizens to reduce the outdoor activities as much as possible. And that makes those students, they cannot date outside with their lovers. So they choose to stay at home to have dates with their lovers. And that's happened, they have some sex at home. And besides, because many works were suspended in Japan, and more teenagers, especially girls, they want to earn money, so they choose to have some supportive relationship in Japan and with some adults, men in Japan. And I think the main reason why this happened, why the pregnancy rates so high now in the Japan is because the Japan is still a conservative society, and this conservative also make those girls don't know how to really protect themselves, and they have less understand about sex, and they don't know how to protect themselves. They can't protect themselves properly. So it caused these things happen. And those reasons all lead to the high rate teen pregnancy under this pandemic in Japan. So yes, that is the news lately in Japan.
Yeah, okay, so thank you, Vivian. And next one. Yo, I'm very excited about having her in our podcast. Welcome, Doris.
Hi, Hank.
I know Doris' mother is a social worker, right?
Yes.
So, and probably that's why you really care much about the family society issue. Recently, I read a paper about a domestic violence happened in Taiwan during the pandemic. And it surprised me a lot why the domestic violence cases increased a lot during the pandemic. So can I have the pleasure to have you to talk about your perspective about this phenomenon?
Of course. As we know, because of COVID-19 epidemic, many countries call on everyone to stay at home, right? However, the study shows that the rate of domestic violence has risen around the world since coronavirus. And Centers for Disease Control Ministry for Health and Welfare in Taiwan indicates that from January to March in 2020, the national domestic violence cases as many as 32,000. And if we compare with the cases in 2019, it grows at the rate of about 5%. The reason why the rate is so high, we can imagine that when we stay at home, we spend a lot of time with our family, right? And it's hard to have no fight with them, so it makes the rate of domestic violence grow rapidly. Following is the way we can do when facing the domestic violence. All we need to do first is to calm down. Because we are agitated, it's easy to have a fight. So cooling off is an important part to avoid domestic violence. The outbreak of COVID-19 has created a global health crisis that has had a deep impact on the way we perceive our everyday lives. Not only the physical level we need to conserve, also the spiritual level we need to conserve. Yes.
Okay, so thank you, Doris. And Leslie, haha, I think it's really my pleasure to have this handsome guy in my podcast. So welcome, Kenny!
Thank you, Hank.
Yes, Kenny. I know Kenny has already been to Philippines for several times, and last year I also stayed in Philippines for 5 weeks, and I went to Baguio City. So personally, I reckon that Philippines is an awesome country to me. Nice people, nice food, and nice weather, of course. And nevertheless, this time, coronavirus pandemic influenced a lot on Philippines. Therefore, I want to invite you to describe what really happened in Philippines during pandemic.
Of course. I think everyone is quite familiar with the Philippines and because it is famous for its tourism. And our student, one of our Taiwanese students called Larry Lai, a PhD student studying anthropology in the University of Hawaii at Manoa, joined an online conference. As we know, face-to-face conference right now is not available, and shared some points I think really worth us to think about. The conference uses the inequality of social class as a beginning point to bring out the influence of COVID-19 in the Philippines. Due to the lack of medical infrastructure, the impact of pandemic highlights the different aspects of social issues. Just as we know, the Philippines might be a probably less advanced country, so definitely the COVID-19 virus struck in really hard. For example, measures like putting on lockdown, maintaining social distance, and home quarantine are hard to follow for many people there. And those with no access to clean water, people who live in crowded blocks became the potential victim under the epidemic. I mean, under the appalling sanitation and their horrible living environment, it is really hard for them to take some measures to prevent the spread of the pandemic. And although there's a medical project called PhilHealth, run by their government, claims that they will compensate all medical expenses due to COVID-19 before April 14. But I think it's still hard to solve the problem and eliminate the inequality of resources. The main reason, I think, is that only few people can actually receive the medical care. They have to pass a series of tests from community health centers to big hospitals before they are perceived as the potential victim, patient of COVID-19. And maybe some will say for some of the aspects, it could be a way to protect the low capacity medical system in the Philippines. But I think, however, it also causes a lot of people being excluded. In fact, the impact of the COVID-19 in the Philippines is far more than the previous mentioned phenomena, especially because their government supports the export of medical workers for many years. That means a lot of Filipinos, they are working for different countries worldwide right now in the front line of the pandemic, from pandemic prevention. And the influence on their family in homeland is huge, I think, no matter emotionally or maybe financially. Also in Taiwan, we have to think during the coronavirus, who did we exclude? Who did we neglect? It is important for us to take all of our people in consideration to protect all of the Taiwanese. And that's the point. While we're here, we're just discussing this. We always hope we hope this we can go through this together. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Kenny. And also thank you for you three to be on the spot to discuss the COVID-19 pandemic's influence in Asia. And lastly, I have one question for all of you three. Because as a Taiwanese, we are really proud of ourselves that Taiwan is a good demonstration for preventing COVID-19. However, when Taiwan tried to share their experience to the world, facing a big dilemma due to the political obstruction from China. So what do you think that Taiwan can strike a balance between political issues and humanitarian medical rescue? So firstly, can we invite Doris to give her opinion?
Yes, I think it's hard to strike a balance between political issues and humanitarian medical rescue. Through the cases of whether Taiwan can be a member of World Health Organization, we can know that Taiwan succeeds in preventing spread of coronavirus is obvious to the world, right? But why Taiwan cannot be a member of World Health Organization? Because China claims that Taiwan is a province of China, not an independent state, and only one China can be a member of World Health Organization. And many nations nowadays around the world rely on China's economic status, right?
Yeah.
So under the pressure of China, Taiwan is hard to be a member of World Health Organization. So I think it's hard to strike a balance between.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So how about Kenny? Do you agree with Doris?
Yeah, just like Doris said, Taiwan right now is not in the World Health Organization, but so far I think we're doing a great job, and we're trying our best to share our experience to the whole world. However, I think it's almost impossible for mainland China to not take the political aspects into the consideration because, yes, I think it's their principle. But I think we can still rely on the power of the civil body to contact with their civil body and our government maybe to share our experience or share our resources to them because we are normal people and they're normal people too. I mean except the politicians. We always take the humanity as our first priority. So I think we can still find out some ways to influence other countries and help them.
Yeah, so how about Vivian? Do you agree with Kenny or Doris?
Yes, I agree with them. And I also think that political issues are really complicated. And like Kenny said, I think it's almost impossible for Taiwan really to strike a balance between political issues and humanitarian medical cares, but human medical rescue. But I think Taiwan so far is doing a great job because even we are except or isolated by these World Health Organizations, but we still show our ability to care the other nations, and we also shows the world that we actually do a great job in during this pandemic, and it's a great example. I think it's great for Taiwan to it's great for the world to know more about Taiwan, and it also shows that Taiwan can help.
Yeah, it's totally true. So, because I think during this time, pandemic, Taiwan shows a really good demonstration around the world. So I think Taiwan cannot be excluded around the world because we live together in this world, right? So lastly, I want to invite three of you to say a call to action in the end. So later I will say Taiwan can help and Taiwan is helping. So you guys follow me, okay?
Yes.
So 3, 2, 1.
Taiwan can help
and Taiwan is helping. Okay, this is Asian English News Podcast from Soochow University. You can listen audible on your computer or iPhone. Enjoy your podcast wherever and whenever you want. And in today's message we give you, don't forget to follow and subscribe for sure, and you won't miss any episodes. See you next time!